Can cannabis treat blindness? Kia ora, my name's Shivan. I'm an optometrist working in Otutahi, Aotearoa, also known as Christchurch, New Zealand. I graduated from the University of Auckland and I started my work in 2016. I also completed an advanced certificate in glaucoma through the Australian College of Optometry in 2017. In this video, we're going to talk about if cannabis can cure the blindness in glaucoma. Before we continue, I just want to include a bit of caveats. I may be an optometrist, but I'm not your optometrist. If you have any eye problems, I really urge you to see your local eye care professional. All the content here is for educational purposes only. This video will touch on various topics, like the history of cannabis, glaucoma, legality of prescribing, and answering the big question, is cannabis effective in treating glaucoma? I've tried making this video for the public, as well as fellow optometrists. Some of the points may be oversimplified or too complicated, so I encourage you to use the timestamps below. If you want a more in-depth discussion on the topic, I suggest reading the 2 blog posts that I've linked in the description below. Now we've got that out of the way, let's get to the bulk of the video. Cannabis is the most controversial plant in human history. For thousands of years, in ancient China, India, and Egypt, cannabis has been used for medical treatment. Fast forwarding to the 1970s, cannabis faced heavy decriminalisation in countries such as the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada. Again, interest in cannabis ignited once more with New Zealand's recent 2020 referendum. The nation was divided, with just 50.7% voting against the legalisation bill. Maybe not for recreational use. Recent changes to legislation in countries like New Zealand, Australia, and the United Kingdom has seen support for cannabis in a medical context. Published in the 6th of September 1971 edition of the Journal of American Medical Association, Robert Hepler and Ira Frank were the first to document the use of cannabis to treat glaucoma. Okay, but what is glaucoma? According to Blind Low Vision New Zealand, glaucoma is the second most cause of irreversible blindness in Kiwis. To really understand glaucoma, we need to know how we see. I've got an eye model here. What happens is, light enters the eye. It then hits the retina, which is the back layer of the eye here. What the retina does, the retina turns the light signal into an electrical signal. That electrical signal travels down the optic nerve all the way to the brain to be seen. What we think glaucoma is, it could be either down to a high pressure, damaging the cable that connects the eye to the brain, and that results in the nerves dying, or it could be a lack of blood supply to the nerve at the back of the eye. Glaucoma is treated by reducing the eye's pressure. This is done in 2 ways, either by reducing the production of fluid in the eye or increasing the fluid drainage in the eye. This can be done through the use of medication in the form of eye drops, laser, or surgery. Now that we have an understanding of glaucoma, I want to talk about the legality of prescribing as optometrist. In order to prescribe medicine in New Zealand, you must be what's known as an authorised prescriber. Optometrists who have therapeutic training fall under the umbrella of being an authorised prescriber. So this means an optometrist can prescribe any medication as long as it is within scope, and that scope, for example, is treating eye disease. However, for prescribing glaucoma, on top of having therapeutic endorsement, extra training is required. For example, I undertook a certificate in glaucoma training, or you could do a set number of hours of observation under a glaucoma prescriber, such as an ophthalmologist or an existing optometrist who has glaucoma prescribing rights. This is similar for optometrists working in Australia, although there doesn't seem to be any extra certification required for glaucoma training. In the case of the UK, extra training is required for optometrists and they must work in a particular field, such as glaucoma prescribing. In the United States, things are a bit different because optometrists are state certified, so this depends on where the optometrist is working. In the case of cannabis, as discussed before, cannabis is illegal for recreational use in New Zealand, but is allowed for medical use. And that medical use has to be approved by a medical practitioner, such as a doctor or a nurse practitioner. This begs the question, if optometrists are able to treat glaucoma, then if cannabis is deemed as an effective treatment for glaucoma, does that mean optometrists will be prescribing cannabis? Now we need to answer if cannabis is an effective treatment for glaucoma. Now, to treat glaucoma, we know we have to reduce eye pressure. Referring back to the first study with Hepler and Frank, it was found that cannabis usage did indeed reduce eye pressure. So you're wondering, how does cannabis reduce eye pressure? Well, the exact mechanism is not known, but there are many proposed mechanisms. Let's look at cannabis. It's a group of plants that contain hundreds of compounds. The 2 most interesting compounds are delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, and cannabidiol, or CBD. Now, CBD was found to have very little effect on the eye pressure. Numerous studies found that THC, when it was inhaled or taken orally or used intravenously, found that the pressure did decrease. This also includes synthetic form of cannabinoid, such as, and I have to look this one up, WIN 55212-2, which also reduced eye pressure, and it comes in an eye drop formulation. Now, the way cannabis reduces eye pressure is still up for debate, but there are a few proposed mechanisms. For example, cannabis is known to reduce blood flow. This reduction in blood flow causes less fluid to be created in the eye. Cannabis also causes constriction of the eye muscle. This opens up the angle, allowing for more drainage of fluid from the eye, therefore reducing pressure. Another mechanism is that cannabis employs the body's own cells and results in the drainage angle being cleared up to allow for more outflow of fluid, also reducing eye pressure. And not only does cannabis reduce eye pressure, there's also a hypothesis that cannabis can offer neural protection or protection of nerve cells. Remember that glaucoma is where the optic nerve becomes damaged. Essentially, the nerve cells are dying off. And these nerve cells are responsible for connecting the eye to the brain to transfer the light signals, which are electrical signals, from the eye to the brain to be able to see. And now it has been proposed that cannabis can indeed reduce the cell death. It does this in two ways, by reducing glutamate and reducing endothelin-1. Glutamate is a chemical that nerves use to communicate with each other. Too much glutamate and this can cause cell death. Cannabis can reduce the release of glutamate and therefore prevent cell death. Endothelin-1 is a signaling molecule that constricts blood vessels. Endothelin-1 might be responsible for reducing blood flow and blood supply to the blood vessels that supply nutrients to the optic nerve. Cannabis can inhibit endothelin-1, therefore allowing more blood flow to the optic nerve. So what's the bottom line? Is cannabis an effective form of treatment for glaucoma? Unfortunately not. We need to discuss the side effects and to see if it actually is effective. Some of the side effects that cannabis include are increased heart rate and changes in mental state. Most patients who are taking glaucoma are elderly. That means they're on medication that controls their blood pressure and their heart rate. Cannabis can interfere with these medications and can have very negative consequences. Also, to put the nail in the coffin, cannabis, even though it reduces eye pressure, is too short acting. The effect only lasts a few hours, the most being 5 hours. Compare this to glaucoma medication, which usually lasts approximately 24 hours. If it's short acting, that means you'll have to take the cannabis medication a lot more, which exposes you to these negative side effects. That means, at present moment, cannabis is not an effective treatment for glaucoma. So despite cannabis not being an effective form of glaucoma treatment, I do want to provide a bit of commentary. I am very interested in the neuroprotective ability of cannabis. At the moment, we measure the effectiveness of a glaucoma treatment based on decrease in pressure, but we've not tapped into the avenue of neuroprotection. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes on in the future. So to summarize our points that we've talked about today, cannabis is full of controversy. The very topic was enough to split New Zealand into two with the recent 2020 cannabis referendum. Glaucoma is an eye disease that can cause irreversible blindness. Optometrists with the correct credentialing can actually treat glaucoma. Although cannabis does reduce eye pressure and has some potential for neuroprotection, its short acting and side effects make it inappropriate for use in treating glaucoma. We must remember that this is just with research at present. There's still more to be done in the future. Thank you for watching the video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you think anyone will find this interesting, please share this video out with them. I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned a lot about cannabis and glaucoma. It's definitely been such an interesting topic for me to research. I wish you all the best. Kia ora and cheers. We're the first to document the possible use of glaucoma.